Welcome to Viewpoints. My name is Heather Isveron, and with me today is Mr. Michael Crane, Executive Vice President and Counsel for IPC International Corporation. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about what you do. I understand you wear quite a few hats.
At least two. IPC International provides security at shopping malls nationwide, and so as Executive Vice President, General Counsel, I kind of oversee the human resource aspect and our about 7,000 employees at 450 shopping malls around the United States and Puerto Rico. I also have a night job, which I call it, and that is I was appointed the co-chairman of the Private Sector Committee of the Illinois Terrorism Task Force, and as such created some programs for the private sector within the Homeland Security arena.
So tell me a little bit more about your task force and what you're doing with that.
Well, as I call it, my night job. A number of years ago, the state created the Private Sector Committee of the Illinois Terrorism Task Force, and we have two programs that subsequently were developed. One is through our State Fusion Center, and that's the Infrastructure Security Awareness Program. And when the Fusion Center was created, through the proactive thought processes of Charles Brueggerman, who is the Deputy Director of the Illinois State Police, he wanted to bring the private sector in and provide them with information. And so through this Infrastructure Security Awareness Program, we receive intelligence information about what's going on within not only Illinois, but the federal government. And the second program that we have is through the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, and that is to create a database of resources that are needed in an emergency in Illinois that the private sector can provide. And so we're going out getting memorandums of agreement so that it's upfront. And so if generators are needed or water is needed or lighting is needed as a result of an emergency, those agreements are already in place, and the private sector can then go out and get it and supply it.
That's beautiful. Can you give me an example of where that's worked?
Just recently worked with the flooding that took place in Illinois. We were tasked with trying to get water, and so we spent a number of days working with private corporations to get bottled water, get it shipped down to those areas that were affected.
And what were the challenges of that coordination?
The challenges were production, quantities. They needed huge amounts of quantities of water. Roads were flooded, bridges were taken out, so you needed to get logistics to get down there. And we weren't the only state that was looking for those resources. Our surrounding states were also affected by the floods, so it wasn't just isolated to us. So trying to get resources was a problem.
Well, it sounds like that's a great way to springboard to the next, what's next, and hot wash it and make it better for next time.
Well, what's next is we were asked to take a seat around the Illinois Emergency Operations Center, which gets activated when there's an emergency, and they've never had a private sector seat that was occupied. So that's coming up next. So
last question. What is it that concerns you the most in these public-private partnerships? Is there any advice you could give? Well, the one thing that really concerns me is the funding or lack of funding. Illinois' budget for the next fiscal year has been cut about $7 million. Knowing that the private-public partnership, if you want to call it, is on the bottom of the totem pole, I'm concerned about the programs that we have in place, especially the intelligence gathering for the private sector. So in order to combat that, what we have done is through the ASIS International Organization and STIC, which is our Fusion Center, we've come up with a program of soliciting corporations in Illinois to make a donation to the ASIS Foundation, which is a charitable foundation, so they can take a deduction, and then the foundation will then in turn pay for private sector analysts to work in STIC. And so that's one way of getting around those budget cuts. We'll still be provided with intelligence and analysts who would be 100% dedicated to providing information to the private sector. What a great approach and idea. Well, if it works, we're going to take it on the road, because I do think it's an excellent way of beating the system. Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Well, thank you for asking me.